The 2024 NFL season is quickly approaching, and today we're going to give you our 6 hottest takes for the upcoming season. These takes are going to be ordered from least hottest to absolute spiciest takes.
Yeah, I think when we look back on this video in December, more likely than not, majority of these takes won't actually come to fruition. But we think they have a better chance of happening than I think the general community may think. So we'll see. We're gonna give them, and
Let us know in the comments if you agree or disagree.
yeah, you probably will not agree. We don't think these are guaranteed to happen. I want to
No.
make that
Yeah,
very
it's very
clear.
clear.
But we think it's in the range of outcomes, and it
Mhm.
is definitely a better chance than you think there is.
Yep.
Basically.
So starting off our least hot takes, we think Brees Hall could finish as the RB1 overall. He's being drafted as like the RB2, RB3 in redraft, so it's obviously it definitely could happen. We think Brees Hall is going to be an absolute monster this year in that Jets offense with Aaron Rodgers coming back. Could be one of the best offenses in the league, led by one of the best running backs in the league. Brees Hall has upside for like 15 plus touchdowns, along with being one of the best receiving backs in the league. He led all running backs in the league with receiving yards last year. He could easily do that again this year. Maybe get even more of Aaron Rodgers loving throwing the ball to his running backs. I think it's totally in the range of outcomes for Brees Hall to be RB1. I don't think it's even really a hot take at all.
Yeah, I think like what you said, probably the mildest take that we have. He's extremely talented, like you said. He's going to be a PPR monster. He's going to be catching so many footballs out the backfield, just like he did last year, and then he's scoring those touchdowns that the Jets'
Yep.
offense just last season was too bad to get. And if he stays healthy, like I think he's got a semi decent chance of it happening.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't be surprised at all if this take comes to
Mm-hmm.
fruition.
All right, it's time to turn up that spice meter up a little bit more. Dakota, what's our next hottest take?
Yeah, our next take is that we think Kyron Williams might not end up as a top 12 running back by the end of this fantasy season. They draft Blake Corum in the offseason in the third round, so day true draft capital invested into Corum. Kyron Williams, we know his history, drafted out in Notre Dame in the late rounds. Not the biggest running back, not the fastest running back, but he produced really well this past season in Sean McVay's offense. We think that could get scaled back. Maybe a flash in the pan season. I think he's pretty good, but I think they probably want to lean off of relying on him so much
Mm-hmm.
and move some of that work to Corum more. On top of that, there's a lot of good running backs that are going to produce in these good offenses in the NFL. He was RB7 last year with over 10 touchdowns, 1,100 yards. We think that probably will go down. I think especially Blake Corum coming in there, he
Yeah.
takes a lot of those touchdowns that Kyron scored last
Yeah.
season.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I don't think by the end of the season, I wouldn't be too shocked if he wasn't a top 12 running back.
Yeah, I don't think McVay has like the allegiance to Kyron Williams that people think he has. Like, I think people think that Kyron Williams is gonna be like that bell cow. Kyron Williams was one of the biggest bell cows last year in terms of like touches on their team, like percentage of touches. I just don't think that's gonna happen again this year. I think by the middle or end of the year, I think it'll be like 50-50 split. And if that is the case, I don't expect the Rams offense to be like super duper high powered. And so I could see Kyron Williams falling out of that top 12. I
Yeah.
think that's where our whole point is
And
here.
he was RB7 last year, staying healthy, playing
Uh-huh.
all the games. He can't obviously project health, but the chances that a running back stays healthy all 17 games, not the highest.
Mm-hmm.
So you miss a couple games in there, like most running backs do. I think that comes down.
Yeah, I think it's definitely possible.
Yeah. So bump it up another notch. What are we
Yep.
saying now?
All right, now we're going over to quarterbacks. We've got Caleb Williams, and our take is that he is going to move into consensus S tier of dynasty quarterbacks by the end of the year. This basically means we think the rankings that you see are going to be some sort of like Allen, Mahomes, Hurts, Caleb Williams, something along maybe Stroud gets up there as well. We think that's what the rankings are gonna show. In order to do that, we think Caleb Williams probably has to have like at least a top 8 season minimum, and show great rushing ability, show that he gets better as the year goes on. And honestly, according to the dynasty community, he probably has to have a nice playoff push too, because that's what people tend to care about. They tend to have short-term memory loss, and they only care about what happens in the playoffs, last couple games of the year. But I think Caleb Williams, I think that he'll lead the Bears to the playoffs. I think he's gonna have success in the NFL. He's gonna show he can rush the ball better than a lot of those other quarterbacks, better than like a Stroud can. So it's gonna give him an advantage over Stroud in terms of like rankings, in terms of 4-point passing touchdowns.
Yeah, it's definitely like a what have you done for me lately? And you see guys like
Yeah.
Stroud and Love that got a lot of hype
Uh
because
huh.
they won a playoff game and they looked pretty good in the
Mm-hmm.
postseason. Another point I wanted to make, CJ Stroud was QB11 this past season, and I think consensus he's in the S tier of quarterback rankings.
Uh huh.
We don't have him there, but a lot of you guys do.
Uh huh.
So
And we're not consensus.
right,
We are just us.
right. But yeah, like you said, I think Caleb Williams, a top 8 season definitely gets him there.
Yeah.
And that is in the range of outcomes for him.
100%. 100%.
We'll see. Obviously playing quarterback is the toughest position in all of sports. Being a rookie in the NFL, producing like that, incredibly hard. But he is extremely talented and he can
Mm-hmm.
do it.
If someone's going to do it.
It's going to be Caleb.
Yep.
Yes.
All right, turning it up. We're getting spicy here. What's next?
George Pickens, we love him. We've been talking about him a ton this offseason. We're very excited for his talent and the lack of target competition. There's no one to throw the ball to in Pittsburgh, and we think as a result of that, he could end up as a top 12 wide receiver in fantasy football this season.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's nobody there. They got rid of Deontay Johnson and they brought in Roman Wilson and Van Jefferson.
Mm-hmm.
It's not great. And George Pickens is extremely, extremely talented. We saw at the end of the last season, he was putting up big, big weeks. He's a deep threat. He can make plays happen with the ball in his hands, creating yak. Against that game in Cincinnati towards the end of the year, he did it all. He had a slant route, took that 80 yards to the house. He had a deep ball down the sideline, touchdown. Like, he can create points in all sorts of different ways. You just get the football in his hands, and he's going to make something happen.
Yep.
They get rid of Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, all those quarterbacks. They bring in Russell Wilson. Not a great quarterback, but it should be better than what he's played with his entire career. So I'm really, really excited. They bring in Arthur Smith, who notoriously didn't use his weapons in Atlanta, but he's not the head coach. He's the offensive coordinator. So I think he has less freedom to say, I'm going to use this player more, this player less. I think Mike Tomlin, the Steelers organization, is saying to him, like, George Pickens is our guy. He's the number one. Get him the football. He's our best player on offense. And I think, all those factors, top 12, he's talented enough to do it.
It's there. I think the main point here for me is he's one of the most efficient wide receivers in the NFL last year. He averaged something like 19 yards a catch. And I genuinely think he can like reproduce that and just add more targets onto that. And on top of that, he's a great jump ball guy. The touchdowns, I think the touchdown upside is immense for him. We're talking 10 plus here. That's what he would need to get to probably be top 12. So I think it's possible.
Yeah, 1,100 yards last season off of like 66 catches.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's going to catch more than
Yeah,
66
bump it up
this
to
year.
1,300 yards, 10 touchdowns, and that probably gets him there.
Yeah, hey, he's got the talent. It's just if, they run the ball a little less than we think they might, if Russell Wilson is a little better than we think he is, all these things happen,
Yep.
and you get that top
Bada
12
bing, bada
season.
boom, top 12 season.
There you go. All right, next take.
All right. We got Zay Flowers here. We are kind of known Zay Flowers haters, and we love that. Our take is that Zay Flowers will be outside the top 36 in terms of wide receivers points per game this year. It's aggressive. We get it. Zay Flowers last year was wide receiver 31 in his rookie year. So we're saying he's going to regress, at least in terms of like an average wide receiver performance. This isn't a huge knock on Zay Flowers himself. We do think he's a relatively talented NFL wide receiver. We do think he's overhyped, but we do think he's talented. It's more just like we think the Baltimore Ravens are going to run the absolute hell out of the rock. With Derrick Henry now in there, much better running back than they've had in previous years. Lamar Jackson, obviously. We think they're going to be up in games almost always, which is going to lead to less passing yards, less passing attempts, which means less targets for Zay Flowers. I got Mark Andrews coming back. Mark Andrews is going to be the number one weapon in terms of receptions. So it's already like Zay Flowers is wide receiver 2 there or target number 2 there at an absolute maximum. We just think he's going to have a disappointing season, and the way that we measured that was out to the top 36 wide receivers.
Yeah. Will it happen? Probably not.
Right.
Could it happen? Yeah. Like you said, they not bring in Mark Andrews. He's coming back from injury. He's the number one guy in that offense. He's a phenomenal tight end. So he's getting the lion's share of the targets. They also draft Tez Walker, who is a really good deep threat with Drake May in college. So maybe I wonder those deep shots they're taking are going maybe to like Tez Walker a little bit more than Zay Flowers would be getting that. So just limits his upside any given week. I think, yeah, he's just like a kind of move to chains, just small slot possession type receiver who's not stretching the field. He did it last year, but I think for this take to happen, you see more Tez Walker doing that, less Zay Flowers stretching the field, and they just use him as a possession slot receiver. He's good. I wouldn't say he's too talented. He's a good player. Again, it probably won't happen, but
I mean, I could see him having a lot of quiet games.
Yeah.
Like, I feel you're going to have your Henry games where Henry goes for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, and then Zay Flowers goes for, 2 for 26? Like, I feel like that could happen a couple times. You're going to have games where Mark Andrews scores 3 touchdowns and Zay Flowers doesn't get his bit. I think that just happens a couple more times than we expect. Then Zay Flowers is going to his production is going to hurt because of that.
Yeah, they want to suffocate the ball, keep the ball, run the ball down your throat with
Yep.
Lamar, with Derrick Henry, and then they play great defense. So, like you said, they're gonna be up in a lot of games. I could
Yep.
easily see that coming to fruition.
All
Um,
right, Dak. We were at like the absolute hottest take possible. What is it?
yeah, and we kind of talked about this even before making the video. You are not really on board with it. It's extremely hot. I understand it, but it's something that I believe could happen. Christian Watson, I've been a big fan of him since he came out of North Dakota State a couple years ago. He's had a lot of factors for not producing the way I thought he might have or could have. I think this season, if he stays healthy, which is, it's always a thing with Christian Watson, if he can stay healthy or not. If he stays healthy, I think he could be a top 20 wide receiver by the end of this season for fantasy. Jordan Love started off with there, very good quarterback. And when Christian Watson was healthy, he produced with Jordan Love. Starting off with this training camp, Christian Watson has been able to stay healthy and actually participate. You haven't been able to say that the past 2 seasons. Like, he hasn't gone into a training camp healthy. There's always been a hamstring injury or something, just prohibiting him from hitting the ground running. This is the first year where he's finally able to do that. They looked at that hamstring specialist this offseason, seemed to kind of fix things with muscle mass in his hamstrings. Maybe that was actually a big factor in why he wasn't able to stay healthy. They fixed that. So yeah, he's healthy right now, which is always a good sign for him. And I think he's the most talented receiver in that offense. Jaden Reed, he's a good slot guy. He's very good, had a good rookie season, but he doesn't provide that game-breaking ability that Christian Watson does and has shown when he's been on the field. Romeo Dubs, he's fine. Dontavian Winks is fine. Christian Watson, put early second round draft capital in him. He's the guy. I think if he's healthy, they want to get him the football. Um, like George Pickens, when he gets the ball, he is very efficient, over 15 yards a catch in both seasons. So in order to get to that top 20 finish that I think there's a chance he could get to, you're going to need those boom weeks where you're catching the ball downfield, making big plays, which again, he's done that in the past. It's just always been health with him. Another guy I think you could point to is a Nico Collins. Nico Collins, the first couple of years, was not able to stay healthy really, and you get him that quarterback in CJ Stroud. He stays healthy for a full season, and he explodes on the scene in year three. I think Christian Watson could have a similar season like that. Maybe not as good as Nico Collins because just the health is too big of a factor. You can't say he's going to stay healthy for all 17 games because he just hasn't proven that. But Jordan Love, good quarterback. Christian Watson, good talent. He's the number one, I think, if he's healthy in that offense. All those signs, all those things could correlate into a top 20 finish. But if he stays healthy, it's in the range of outcomes for him.
I don't disagree. If you liked the video, if you liked our takes, let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear your opinions on them, good or bad. We hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.